I have got all of my things in order. Oh, and this, just to hear a little better. All right. Welcome, and let's begin with the word of prayer, and then we'll dive right in. God, our Father in heaven, we thank you so much for being the giver of good things and allowing us to be gathered here together, and the wonderful gifts that you've given us in the community here and in your word and just in our day-to-day lives. And we're just thankful for the things that we might even not even think to be thankful for. So thank you for showering us with your good blessings. Help us to hear your truth tonight. Help us to fill up with it and to then embody it and then live it out and take it out to the world. Thank you for your Son. In his name we pray. Amen. Okay, so we are in the midst of studying Kings and the Minor Prophets, and we've been laying the groundwork. And tonight we're actually going to get to dive right into the Book of Kings and start marching through it together. But in way of review, per usual, what is a prophet? Mouthpiece of God. They also are doing what? Provoking the people to fire it up about the covenant, to keep the covenant. They are provokers, and their message can be summarized in what way? Obey the Lord, like now, right now. In that, is we've kind of discussed, is when we think about prophet, we got to think about them on the ground, in their day, in their moment, speaking to them. What was their immediate message to the audience, the listeners of their day? And then, when we hear that, when we hear what they're saying in their day, we're going to be able to then take it and apply it to ourselves now. Because should we be concerned about how God feels about his covenant being kept? Because who is his covenant partners now? All of us. If you are in Christ, you have entered into a covenant. Congratulations. You're in a marriage. That's what this is all about. And so in these patterns of old, we learn wisdom to gain insight and understanding on how we are to live today. And then we went on to talk about how prophetic books do the same things. They are teaching the people to keep God's covenant and trying to convict. And Kings is, as we saw in that ordering of the Old Testament, is as filed as a prophetic book. And so Kings is a prophetic book meant to convict and to teach and to instruct and to give wisdom so that we can know and learn and watch now these different characters play out different scenarios on how they do or don't keep God's covenant on a basic level. And then just by way of reminder, for whenever we start diving into the minor prophets themselves, there's how many minor prophets? 12 of them. And we talked about this briefly, but were they all on their own individual little scrolls? No, they were all on one scroll. All of them right there would have been on a collective scroll. And so they have a collective message and a collective voice that they're speaking with. Obviously, all scripture is being spoken with the one voice of God's Spirit, but in the way that we see Isaiah as a unified scroll with a unified message from Isaiah, we need to be, or Jeremiah or Ezekiel, we're going to be thinking about the minor prophets that way as well. The 12 prophets and how they have one voice and one message that they're communicating with. And then last class is we looked at the central message of the law and the prophets as a whole, which is you guys. Love the Lord your God with all of your strength, with all of your mind. And the second command is like this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two hang all of the commandments, and above them there is no other law. That's kind of a blending of Matthew, Gospel according to Matthew, and Luke there. And so, in those two commands, love God and love neighbor, we have this. They are a positive feedback loop. is how do you love God? You love your neighbor. And how do you better love your neighbor? You love God. You give him all of your heart and your passions and your desires, and you align your character with his character and your desires with his desires. And when you're doing that, you're taking care of your neighbor. You're showing love to others. You're showing compassion, and you're embodying God's life right now in the present to those who surround you. That's what Israel is supposed to do. That's what we're supposed to do. And then what we talked about is kind of the anti or reversal of that is what? The opposite of loving God is you put something else at the highest place, which is called in the prophets what? Idolatry. And then we didn't talk about this as thoroughly as I would have liked, but the opposite of love of neighbor, it starts to degrade. And what would we call that? Oh, sorry, I can't hear anything. Destruction, injustice, social injustice. Whenever you misalign your worship, you misalign who God's character is, you begin to let others fall by the wayside and be oppressed and destroyed. That's what Israel does. And that's what we see is the opposite of love of God. It starts to spiral downward, and then social injustice falls. The poor are oppressed. And then do we remember, these are all intertwined and interlooped, but do we remember what groups? We talked about 3 groups who are usually the ones the prophets call out are what? The widow, the orphan, or the, what's the other name of the orphan? Fatherless. Very good. And then the third one, again? Sojourner. Give me some other synonyms. Immigrant, alien, foreigner, the one who's a traveling person through your lands. And so those are the 3 different subgroups who are being neglected. And they are classified as the poor, you might call them, or you not might call them. That's how the prophets will often refer to them. Woe to you, Amos says, who trample the poor and oppress the needy. And he's like, and then that's at the beginning of his writings, and then he goes on to describe what's going to happen and all the terrible things that they're doing and oppressing to these people. And when these are neglected, it's exposing a misunderstanding about the character of God. Again, they don't know who God is. They don't have knowledge of God. They don't have love for God, because what are each of these groups lacking? What's an orphan lacking? What's the fatherless lacking? A father. What is a widow lacking? A husband. What is a foreigner lacking? A home. And so in that, you have people not knowing who God is, which leads them to not seeing themselves in their neighbor, which leads them to neglecting their neighbor and preserving their own selfish desires, and it leads to the destruction of a society. Welcome to Kirkwood this evening, if you're visiting. But this is the wisdom. This is we got to listen and learn so that we make sure we're not doing this, and so that we are aligned with God's desires and His will. Okay, that is my. There's an amazing verse I forgot to mention on Sunday that just encapsulates this. It's Psalm 68, verse 5 and 6. It says, is it going? Now it's going. A father to the fatherless and the defender of the widow is God in His holy habitation. God leads the lonely to inhabit families or a home, and He leads the prisoners into freedom, but the disparaged live in a parched land. It's like, there it all is, right there. Like, if you just need to have it in a nice, concise place. This right here, just look at that. Father to the fatherless and the protector, the defender of the widow. It's who God is when He's sitting in His holy sanctuary, and He's on His throne. It's like, lock that one in your brain. Put that deep down in your heart. Yes, Jacqueline?
That phrase you're talking about, access and solitary and families.
Yours says families? I love that. What did I have? To inhabit a family. Another, I can't remember which translation it was when I was looking at comparison verses, but it says He makes the lonely inhabit a home, which is the very, very, it's a beautiful image. Like, think of all those like warm, fuzzy Christmas movies where the like loner gets brought into the family on Christmas morning. It's that. That's what God does. That's His nature. That's His desires, is to make a unified family for everyone. That no one's on the outside, no one's on the fringe, but that everyone has a place to call home. Like that's what this is all about. That's what he's all about. But yeah, that's the review. Any comments or thoughts on that? We're gonna keep doing this because we got to keep all these ideas at the forefront of our mind as we plunge into the heart of Kings and the 12 prophets. But any thoughts on that? This has all been groundwork, so we're gonna dive into the stories after this. Any thoughts or comments? Yeah.
Some of the parables that said in the New Testament, well, all along this idea, like rid of the populace and sojourners, that is the lost in the power.
Mm-hmm.
About everything in the New Testament that says people want lost, now you found.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing as having a home, having a father, and all that. It's right.
Bingo. We're adopted, right? And then one of the most beautiful healings, I believe it's only in Luke, but Jesus is walking up to a town and he sees a funeral procession coming out, and it's a son who's died, and it's the only son of a poor widow, and he just goes up to the woman and he says, "Don't cry," and then he goes over to the casket and he takes the boy's hand and he says, "Arise," and then he gives her son to the widow. And so it's just like that's who our God is like the restorer of the broken, the healer of the dead, and the builder of families. And when these things fall off the highest place, like God falls off the highest place. Like they're intertwined, they're interlinked. So yeah, good stuff. And all of the language of the New Testament, of the new family of God, like right on. Christ is the culmination. And like we talked about on Sunday, the fulfillment of all of this. He now lets us explore these patterns with the true light of Christ so that we can actually understand what went wrong and how it's completed in him. As he is to us, we were all once like abandoned and alone, and he's brought us into a family. All of us who were once, he's now our good husband, the bridegroom of the church, and then he's our king, and he will be forever and ever. And we will be in the family and under his rulership forever and ever. So good stuff. Let those keep letting those things link up. And if you have other thoughts on something, you're like, this sounds like that, dude, bring that up. Don't rob anybody of not saying something. If you have a comment, make the comment. So, any other thoughts on review? Yes.
It all goes back to the fact of love.
Mm-hmm.
We are loved by God, and as a result, we are responsible not only to love Him, but to love our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, that is where when we were talking about where Israel went wrong, is they forgot their indebtedness to God through their rescue in Egypt. And so when they don't realize what they have been rescued from and the love that God showed to them, they fail to show that love to others, because God rescued them when they were unloved down in Egypt, oppressed, foreigners in a strange land, no covenant partner, and no fatherly protector. And God says, Israel's my firstborn son, and you are my God, or I'm your God, and you will be my people in a new covenant. And then I'm now going to take you and bring you into a land that you can live in and possess. And they forgot that. And when we forget that, it all falls apart. He's done the same for us. What else? Yes.
Passage before, I think, my favorite passage, Ezekiel 16, talks about God's love for Jerusalem and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect picture. We're talking about, God rescued you with a man who's thrown out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For
Yeah.
those, those elected for individuals, I was, recognize everything, but.
Yeah. Yeah. The forgetfulness of God's people is one of the greatest dangers that we face. So yeah, that but is the moment that the whole chapter shifts, and it's suddenly she goes off and sells herself to others, goes and just has many lovers. God keeps calling back, but she keeps running away, and then ultimately is destroyed in exile. Yeah. Any other comments or things? All right. Well, let's dive right into the book of Kings. If you want to turn to 1 Kings chapter 6, that's where we're going to be starting at. 1 Kings chapter 6. And so now, in the book of Kings, we're going to get into like what I'm titling these next 6 lessons is the world of the 12. So this is the setting, the backdrop for whenever we get to one of the minor prophets. Often they will begin with, the word of the Lord came to Amos during the days of Hezekiah or Uzziah or whoever, or Jeroboam II. And you're like, they're expecting you to then be like, oh yeah, I've already read that. That's what I read in the book of Kings. And so we're going to familiarize ourselves with these stories, and we're going to see where the prophets also show up in these stories even tonight. And then we're going to press on, and we're going to see how they're commenting on the events that are taking place here. For starters, though, on your worksheet, this is technically what we usually call the period of the United Kingdom, and we're going to dive in and spend most of our time during the Divided Kingdom. But this is really important because the Bible, the books have a message within themselves. And the book of Kings begins with what I titled this lesson, the main character of the book of Kings. Does anyone want to take a guess what the main character is of the book of Kings? Anyone just throw spaghetti against the wall? What do y'all think? It's kind of a trick question. Actually, it's definitely a trick question. Huh? What? What did you say? What did you say? Solomon? I mean, by the content of the lesson, one would think so. I said it's a trick question because the temple is the main character of the book of Kings. And by that, the association, I mean God's presence, which is what the temple is, where he dwells. But God's temple, this whole large beginning of the book, there's like massive chapters that I forced you to read if you did the readings, where God is describing, and then Solomon is building this big construction project. And how does the book of Kings end? All the way to the end of 2 Kings, all the way to the end. What's the very last page about? The destruction of the temple. And it goes through this whole, talking about all the different parts that we're going to talk about tonight that build in the temple are then destroyed and taken away. Like this, and all the main events, they have this centralization around the temple. The law is found. The scroll of the law is found during the time of Joash, been a minute, during one of the kings, where he finds the book of the law in the temple. Later, during when Athaliah kills all of the other sons of David, one of them is hidden in the temple. Later on, whenever there's the atrocities that are done by Manasseh, he sets up idols in the temple. The temple is this main place that we're just going to find ourselves keep coming back to. And so it starts the whole entire book with the building of the temple. Any thoughts or comments on that? This is the main character we're going to be talking about, which in it, I mean Yahweh. If you have to guess a main character of the Bible, your answer should always and ever be God. That is the main character of the Bible. And along with that, his creation, humanity. All of us, and the relationship between the two of them. But here the book begins with the building of the temple. Now, on the first little questions, I asked two kind of starter questions. How many years did it take to build the temple? 7 years. And y'all reading through, did y'all see where suddenly the project construction is interrupted? And you're told about Solomon building his house. How long did it take him to build his house? 13 years. Interesting. Look at here. In chapter 6, let's see, chapter 6 is where the construction begins. But turn over and you're reading about all these details for the whole chapter, 38 verses. And then chapter 7, it says, now Solomon built his own house 13 years, and he completed all of his house. And then it goes into great detail for the next 10 to 12 verses about Solomon's house. Oh, but then it picks back up in verse 13 of chapter 7 with, now King Solomon went to Hiram of Tyre, and they start building the temple again. What do y'all make of that? That he's taken 7 years to build the temple, but then 13 years to build his house.
We know where his priority lies.
Seeing a little bit of it starting to manifest right here. We know, I assume many of y'all are familiar with the story of Solomon. We know where this is going, but we kind of start to see a little bit of it right here. It's interesting that like sevens. What is 7 associated with in the Bible? My ladies' class, you better answer this. Completion. What Bible story should you think of when you hear 7? Creation. Completion of creation. So it's like you got that little link with Solomon's temple, but you notice how his own house is like 7 times 2, but not quite. It's 13. It's like almost super complete, but it's like it fell a little short. So it's like a little 7 plus 6. It's kind of weird. Only 13 years on Solomon's house. Now, when Solomon begins to build the temple in 1 Kings chapter 5, just the last verses right before the reading began, where does he get the manpower from? Where does he get it? Conscription. It's literally forced labor. And also he appoints over them taskmasters. Does anybody want to take a gander on the last person who used forced labor and taskmasters? Pharaoh. Oh no. Oh dear. And if you look back into 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 1, who does Solomon marry? Who's like his first mention of a foreign marriage? It's Pharaoh's daughter. And in fact, he builds her a big house a little while later. She gets her whole penthouse. So what are we supposed to be picking up with as we see these sort of repetitions and patterns appear in the life of Solomon? What's going on? Huh? Danger. Yeah. Oh, Steve Irwin.
He's becoming exactly what God's prophets told the people he would as a king.
Mm-hmm. Good little memory from back in when y'all were studying Samuel together. He said that, hey, the king is going to plunder and take control and like conscript and do all of these things and annex your land. It's happening. Power is being centralized.
The thing I find interesting and funny, what happened to his wisdom?
Yeah. What did?
I mean, he went out the door.
Went out the door.
He had like 400 wives.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. How many
Yeah.
gods did they worship? More than what he was supposed to.
Yeah. We're not there yet, but like we're headed there, and we're kind of going to see this is wisdom. Wisdom is a unique kind of thing, right? Wisdom. I'll just give y'all. I won't try to fish for answers. I'll just give y'all the thing. Wisdom is like, you know the sickle. You know what a sickle looks like. What do we usually associate it with? The Grim Reaper. But what I heard someone else say, harvest. You could take a sickle, and you're supposed to use that thing as a tool to harvest and create life, right? That's what it was made for. But like because of ancient art and whatnot and pop culture references, we come to associate it with the Grim Reaper and death. Is the sickle becomes a symbol of life, and it was meant for life, but it can also be used as a symbol of death and destruction. That's what wisdom is like. You can be wise in a craft, and you cannot use wisdom for good. The serpent was more what? Crafty. It's a wisdom word. Like that word crafty is in a whole web of things, and it's in the book of Proverbs as described as a positive trait to someone who's being crafty. But if you equip it to destruction, it can destroy. And if you equip it to life, it can multiply goodness and abundance and blessing. That's what wisdom does. So Solomon's the wisest of them all, but he lacks one thing. One thing. Oh, we'll get to it in a minute. I think it's another word that we've already talked about, but that is part of it. We'll come back to that. Let's keep going with the temple construction. Here in chapter 6, the very beginning, how many years has it been since the Exodus story? 480 years, 40 times 12, interestingly enough, beside the point. But why would the Exodus randomly be mentioned right here? Any thoughts on that? Yes, ma'am?
It's a foundational event.
Uh-huh.
It tells you that, I'm referring back to it. It gives you, this happened back here, and because of this, God took care of you, God brought you out of Egypt, God gave you a law, God did all these things, and yet you forget it.
Yeah. Let me try to rephrase the question as well, because that's right on the money. But how would you answer this that's on the screen now? Why was Israel Exodus, turning it into a verb? Why were they taken out of Egypt? What did they sing about after they come out of the Red Sea? Why were they rescued? What was the purpose?
To fulfill Abraham's.
Yeah, to fulfill the blessings. But like, that's a thing. What's the why? Like, what's the why behind it? Look over with me, please, at Exodus 15 real quick. Just put a finger in 1 Kings. Look at Exodus 15 here. Can I get someone to read for me verses 16 and 17 of Exodus chapter 15? Loud and clear. Peyton, you got me?
Yeah. Fear and dread shall fall upon them, thy greatness of thine arm, they shall be as still as a stone. Till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over, which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for them to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established.
Okay, thanks. What are they singing and looking forward to in that moment? Going into the land, and God's going to plant them on what? On the mountain. Yeah. What mountain is that? Mount Zion, which is where what is being constructed right now? The temple. The temple is why they were Exodus. This is like the center of Israelites' history, because you want to guess how many years it approximately is from the temple to the exile? About 480 years. This is like the center where it's like things are looking really good, and we're like at the top, right as it's about to go down from here. Because the rest of Kings is kind of this spiral downward, and it's until what happens at the very end of the book? The destruction of the temple. So this is like the center of their history. This is the center of the whole story we've been kind of following along since the Exodus of this whole family. And they were meant to be a people that God planted in this inheritance on this mountain that would be a blessing to all of the world. But alas, it is beginning to decline. So now as we get into these, I won't make us read aloud of these grand construction projects. Remember, I emphasize like do your readings on that like curriculum plan. And this was quite a set of readings. It's good bedtime reading. If you're getting sleepy or you need a count sheep or something, start reading about the construction of the temple, where it just starts listing all these measurements and all these building materials and all of this and that. But it brings up, it's intentional. It's all very intentional. Now, what other building projects have we read about before this? What should I be thinking back towards? What other building projects are there in the Bible? Just give me some. The tabernacle, I heard. The Tower of Babel. You get a gold star. That's like, yes. And then what else I hear? The Ark. Noah's Ark. Yeah, Noah's Ark. And what else? Big one. Huh? Someone say it? Did I hear someone say it? Sorry, what? Oh, yes. Zerubbabel's temple a little while later, but I'm thinking before this time. We're missing a big one, you guys. Big boy. Huh? No, that's after. That's after. The tabernacle. Joe, did anybody say that one? Did I miss it? I might not have heard it. Someone said it? My bad. Okay. Well, we got the tabernacle, Noah's Ark, and Tower of Babel. All of these different construction projects throughout the story. And one big one How many years does it take to build the temple? How many days does it take for God to create? 7. We're supposed to be linking those in our minds. And all of the imagery of the temple with the gold and the trees and the flowers and the fruit and the blossoms, all of this is linking back to what? The garden. And what we see in that is there's these repetitions. These are great. Let me just go through a few of them with y'all. So similar, when God created the earth, he created the heavens and the earth and the seas. And look at this right here. I made sure to add this detail over here on the side with the tabernacle. This bronze basin, what is it called? It's not the basin, it's called the bronze sea. That's out here in this section, like the seas, and then the holy place, the land, and then the most holy place where God's throne is, heaven and the most holy place. And then along with that, y'all already were hitting all of them, but we'll keep going after we get to Genesis 1, Genesis 2. We have God plants a garden in Eden. So you have the land of Eden, the garden, and in the middle of the garden, where what was in the middle? The tree of life, the center of life, the place where life can happen. And then, do y'all remember Cain and Abel? What does it say? They brought their sacrifices to a certain place. And when God speaks to Cain, he says, be careful, because sin is crouching at the door. You know where that phrase, at the door, shows up the most in the entire Bible? It's in the book of Leviticus. Whenever they're told to bring their sacrifices at the door of the tent of meeting, which is where they were offering sacrifices out there. Very, very interesting. Maybe you're not buying it right now, but I have loads of stuff that I could show you as well that we don't have time to cover. But this is like a pattern that's setting up here, this construction project. This is the center of life. This is where God is resting with his people. This is what Solomon is appointed to do, and if he was doing it rightly, it would have gone on and hoped forever and ever. But again, as we're going to see, it is only the beginning of the end, or we're almost to the end of the beginning, you might say. And then you also have the ark. Little known facts, whenever you're reading through, you kind of just glaze over, but there's 3 layers to the ark. There's the lower, middle, and upper decks. There's 3 floors to the ark. It's just like once you kind of put these things all together, these patterns start to crop up and pop out. And then one of my favorites, or actually all time, is passage in Philippians chapter 2, when Paul describes the work of Christ and how he ultimately fulfilled everything that's before. What does he do? He did not consider the form of God something to be grasped, but he emptied himself and came in the form of a servant. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death on a cross. And so he goes down into the grave. And it says, therefore God highly exalted him and gives him the name that's above every name, that the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. It's like, and then I didn't have, we don't have time to talk about it all, but in Hebrews, when he's describing Christ's work, he talks about how he goes into the actual Holy of Holies, into heaven itself. Where does the Hebrew writer get that idea? He gets it from the Bible, from all of this that we're talking about. So all of these things are pointed towards, as we come back here now to the temple itself, is Solomon is building like a little miniature creation, a little miniature new Garden of Eden, and it's supposed to be this wonderful blessing of God's presence on the mountaintop. And God is gifting and giving himself to the people. And when he finishes dedicating the temple through this prayer, and also this is, does anyone want to take a guess how many different petitions Solomon has in paragraphs throughout the prayer? Take a shot. 7. Bingo, good job. Gold star all about. But he says 7 different paragraphs in this prayer, and then when he completes it, what happens to the temple? It's filled up with God's presence, so much so that the priest couldn't minister in it. Same thing that happened in the temple, same thing that happened in the tabernacle when it was dedicated. And so then, Sorry, we're kind of breezing through a few of those questions there at the end, but we are running short on time here. This is the ideal. A righteous human ruler, a son of David, building up the dwelling place of God so that then God's presence can fill it and they can be together. If you want to look with me at 1 Kings chapter 9, real quick, and I'll just read this because this is kind of setting the tone for what unfolds in the rest of the book. Verse 3, this is after this temple is complete. They celebrate for a feast for 14 days, 7 times 2. And then in chapter 9, 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 3, Yahweh said to him, that is Solomon, I have heard your prayer and your supplication that you have made before me, and I have set apart as holy this house which you have built by putting my name there forever. And my eyes and my heart will be there perpetually. As for you, if you walk before me as your father David walked, in the integrity of your heart and uprightness, and according to all that I have commanded you, and keep my statutes and my judgments, then I will establish the throne of your kingdom of Israel forever. Just as I promised your father David, saying, you shall not have a man cut off of the throne. But if your sons indeed turn away from following me, and they do not keep my commandments or my statutes, which I have given before you, and go on and serve other gods and worship them, then I will cut off Israel from the land that I have given them, and the house that I've set apart as holy for my name. I will cast out of my presence. So Israel will become a proverb and a byword among the peoples. And this house will become a heap of ruins. And everyone who passes by will feel desolate, and they'll hiss, and they'll say, why has Yahweh done this thing in the land and to this house? And they will say, because they forsook Yahweh their God, who brought their fathers out of the land of Egypt, and they grasped hold of other gods and worshiped them and served them. Therefore, Yahweh has brought this calamity on them. Who else in the Bible has not listened to God's commands and they grasped something else? Who did that first? Eve and Adam in the garden. This is a new garden. And he's saying, if you don't listen to my voice and you grasp at the other things, other gods, and worship them, then this place will become a heap of ruins. Like, God's fair on both sides. The nations, if they rebel against him, they will be destroyed, and his own people, if they rebel against him, they will also be destroyed. And so now we got to end on a dismal note, but the fall of Solomon. I had y'all go back and read Deuteronomy 17 and then take a glance over 1 Kings chapter 10. Of which of the commandments in Deuteronomy 17 did Solomon break? What? He married foreign wives. So let me just give y'all the laws real quick, just as a refresher. It says, don't multiply gold. This is God speaking. Whenever you enter the land and you appoint a king from amongst yourselves, he says, don't multiply gold. Don't marry and have multiply your wives and marry foreign women. It doesn't even, I'm drawing a blank. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. I just know it says don't multiply wives. And then it says, and also don't go down to Egypt to buy horses. It's like a very specific little thing. I had a friend, this is how they were taught to remember it. No gold, no giddy up is the way that they remembered it. And so, which one of those does Solomon break? All of them. Like it's look at this in chapter 10. Turn with me to chapter 10. It talks about all of the gold he multiplied in the land. It's so much so that what was silver like? It's like dust, like stones. Like silver's like rocks. It's like, you don't have gold? Forget you. And it's like, it's so much gold overflowing that silver, the depreciation of the value of silver has dropped rapidly in the economy of Solomon's kingdom. And now he also has multiplied his wives. That's chapter 11. But here in chapter 10, look at verse 28. It says, Solomon's import of horses from Egypt and from Keul, the king's merchants procured from him, from Keul, a price. And it says a chariot was imported from Egypt for 600 shekels of silver and a horse for 150. And by the same means, they exported them with all of the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Arameans or the Aramites. So it's like Solomon took the forbidden code of Deuteronomy 17 as a job description. And it's very clear that like he's just going down and breaking every one of these laws. And it's not listening to the wisdom of God, not listening to his commands. And so on top of that, who did I just read? They exported. They had imports buying all of this stuff from Egypt, and then they exported it to what nations? The Hittites, the people of Aram. Like, keep those nations kind of simmering in the back of your mind. They're going to show up again. You want to guess what they're going to show up doing? Raiding, pillaging, marauding. Oh, and guess what they're riding in on? Chariots. They have equipped the nations that they sought to subdue and prosper over. They've equipped them with the weapons that they're then going to be in turn destroy them. Like, that's exactly what goes on. And so Solomon is just, everything's gone south. And then you get into chapter 11, verse 1, King Solomon loved many foreign women. And he just lists all of the nations. And guess what they do? They start to influence his heart and his love. For Solomon went after, this is verse 5 of 1 Kings 11. Solomon went after the Asherah, the goddesses of the Sidonians, and Milcom, the detestable idol of the Ammonites. And look at verse 7. Solomon built high places for Chemosh, the detestable idol of Moab, on the mountain which is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the detestable idol of the Ammonites. And he also he did all of this for his foreign wives who burned incense and sacrificed to their gods. Do you might know what happens? How do you worship Molech?
They sacrifice their children.
There's some statues uncovered where it's like this god with arms like this, and it's like a ramp that you just drop your child into, and it rolls into the mouth of the god into the fire. It makes them pass through the fire is the language of the text. Like, that's how far Solomon goes. So where did Solomon go wrong?
There was another commandment that you didn't talk about, and that was you're supposed to write it down in the law and read from it all of his days.
Yeah.
So that he would learn to obey the Lord.
He's got to be a Bible nerd. Like, he's got to be a scribe, essentially. Is he has to, did everyone catch that? I forgot to point it out. Solomon, in the Deuteronomy 17, the king is supposed to copy all of the law down and write it down on their own personal parchment. And they're supposed to meditate on it day and night and be a wise person who knows God's laws. Solomon doesn't have any record of him doing that, and his actions go to show it. Because writing the law down, what does Deuteronomy also say? Where is the law supposed to be truly written? On the heart. That's the center of your desire, the center of your passions, the center of your loves. Where did Solomon, the wisest man in the world, what was he lacking? He was lacking proper love. Because all the wisdom, you can have all the knowledge. One person said this. He said, I can have all wisdom and all knowledge, and I could have faith that could move mountains. If I don't have love, I'm nothing. I could give up my food to the poor, and I could give up my own body to be burned, but if I don't have love, what am I? Nothing. Solomon, wisest of the fools, you might say. And that's what we're going to see is this setup through the rest of the time is each time a son is born, we're like, oh, could this be the one? Could this be the one? And we're just going to suspend the trajectory where it's going, but also remember that it's all going towards the true son of David, which is Christ, the true temple builder. But as we go through each of these kings, they're going to be little case studies, little hearts that are showing who are they going to love, what are they going to love, where do they put their trust, and what are they going to worship. And well, it doesn't even last. The United Kingdom doesn't even last a generation past Solomon with this temple. So, and that's next week. So make sure to grab your worksheet. Do you have a closing comment, Ms. Teresa?
Talking about it, looking for Jesus, and what we talked about the temple, and he said he was a temple which he destroyed it in 3 days. Just if everything is known as a definition of prayer was fulfilled through Jesus, because Solomon was a member and he was perfect and would follow all of those statutes.
Good stuff. That's a great place to end. And I'll make a note. Maybe we'll even pick up there next time. Thank you all for your comments and all your thoughts.